Welcome to day 2 of your 28 Days to Better Periods Challenge. It's glorious outside. I want to film out here. Hot hormone tip. Your hormones love the great outdoors. They love their vitamin D, the grounding of nature. But we'll get deeper into that during stress week. Before we dive into improving our menstrual cycle, we need to know who we're dealing with. So today we're doing Menstrual Cycle 101. The menstrual cycle can be split up into 4 different seasons. We're like mini Mother Earths. These seasons are called phases, and they are Follicular Phase, Ovulatory Phase, Luteal Phase, and Menstrual Phase. The hammer. The mower. The hammer. Each phase has its own distinct hormone actions, and from there, hormones, which are chemical messengers, trigger different reactions in the body. That's why we can eat and move and make different lifestyle choices according to each phase that really hone in on what our body needs at that time, because it's constantly changing throughout the month. This stuff can be a little heady, but I want you to have access to all the information, so I'll do a scientific breakdown about what's actually happening during each of these phases, and then I'll translate for the girlies. Is this dog barking ever gonna stop? Ay caramba. We'll start by breaking down follicular phase, our internal spring. Follicular phase begins directly after your period finishes. It'll last like anywhere between like 5 to 8 days. And follicular phase seeds the new cycle by sending hormones from your brain down to your ovaries. And it's like, let's get it going. Let's get a new menstrual cycle happening. One of these hormones that starts to rise during follicular phase, and the rise of hormones at this time is very steady and gradual, but one of the hormones that's rising is estrogen. Estrogen is the juicy, thickening hormone. It's the female sex hormone. And estrogen tells your uterus, like, get ready, an egg's coming. This creates a thick lining on the uterine walls that we call the endometrial tissue. We also see the rise of follicular stimulating hormone during follicular phase. That's where it gets its name. And follicular stimulating hormone is just telling the follicles that all your eggs live within to swell up because we need a mature egg. What does this mean for the body? As estrogen is rising, estrogen suppresses appetite, so our digestion is a little bit slower, our metabolism is a little bit slower, we need less calories to be satiated during follicular phase, and digestion's a little bit more tender. The parts of your body that need the most support during follicular phase are the gut microbiome and your brain. The brain, this is where everything is being set off. We want to make sure that the machine is running properly so that the hormones are sent out successfully. The gut microbiome kind of takes a hit after the period, so when we bleed, we lose a lot of nutrients in that bleed. Also, the gut microbiome is responsible for a little bit overseeing hormone health. There's a portion of the gut where estrogen is metabolized, so that's going to come into play. And we just want to make sure our gut microbiome is super strong to keep everything on track for the rest of the cycle. This is like follicular phase, start your foundation. You'll start to have more extroverted energy. You'll be able to focus a little bit more on others during follicular phase. Your brain is really primed for creative thinking and planning out new ideas, very like visionary. In other words, follicular phase is hot girl walk season. It's get your podcast in and listen to something that inspires you and is igniting your creative ideas. Like, think about how we feel January 1st and you're like, I got to get my shit together. That's kind of what follicular phase brings, is this like new fresh start energy. And with estrogen on the rise, that just makes you so much more social, so much more like extroverted, outward energy. You're really like ready to rejoin society post-period. Follicular phase is really a special thing. It's an easy phase to love. It's very in alignment with like what our modern world expects us to show up as, so it feels really easy to be a woman operating in the world in follicular phase. And as you start to build up this relationship with your body and really sink into your cycle, the shift that you notice from going from menstrual phase, your period, to follicular phase, that feeling like no drug could ever compare. That is euphoria. You'll see. A day in follicular phase, if I had to think about it, would be like, I'm dancing, I'm calling up my friends, I'm like, hey, I'm back. I've emerged. A fatty slice of avocado toast, or like there's greens everywhere, there's sauerkraut everywhere, it's bubbly all around, and that includes the foods you're eating, like pickly, fermented yumminess, all for the gut. I'm not going to go too deep into what foods to eat for each phase, because you can go over to my website on Katie Flower, and there is a cycle syncing blog post where you can get some more like direct food recommendations. Next up, we have ovulatory phase, our inner summer. This is just a quickie. It's like 2 to 5 days. You know it's here because the discharge you start to produce just goes crazy. It's like you go to the bathroom and you wipe and it's like slick, like a slip and slide. This is a wet season. Ovulatory phase is really like estrogen season. Estrogen's the main character for this one. It's going to hit like its climax. You also get like a surge from testosterone, which is gonna be why you're starting to feel a little spicier. The purpose of that would be to fertilize the mature egg, so what's going on inside of your body. In the last season, the follicles that hold your eggs were swelling up. During ovulation, the egg is released from the follicle, travels down the fallopian tube into the uterus, where it's met with that plush endometrial lining thanks to estrogen. With estrogen being so high, the verbal and social centers of your brain are activated, so you are like, this is the most extroverted you'll feel all month. During ovulatory phase, we turn our focus towards our detox pathways, so we're still giving the gut love. We want to make sure that digestion is running smoothly. We also start to give more support towards the liver. We want to make sure that detox is working effectively because hormone levels are so high at this time. They need to be cleared so that they don't continue to set off reactions. And if you're unable to clear the excess hormones, this could lead to something like estrogen dominance, where you have too high levels of estrogen and a bunch of hormone imbalances can be set off from this. Ovulatory phase for the girlies. Primal. It's man-eater energy. We can do anything and anyone when we are ovulating. We're unstoppable, really. And it's really interesting because it's such a short period of time. It's such a crazy surge of like extroverted action energy. If you have plans to conquer the world, schedule it for your ovulatory phase. For me, ovulatory phase is very much marked by like full social calendar. I'm going out more, cooking at home a little bit less, because also our body is just so much less sensitive during ovulatory phase. That doesn't mean throw in the towel and treat yourself like shit, but it's like we're able to process alcohol better in this phase. We are able to take on a little bit extra sugar, and that is in part because estrogen is very anti-inflammatory, very protective. Also during ovulation, I feel like I'm a little bit more like in the spotlight if I have any like work projects or yeah, just something I'm trying to put out. That's really the time that I like to do it. I know I'll be my best self. I know that my communication skills are just that much stronger, and yeah, ovulatory phase slang. Then we move to luteal phase, our internal fall. This is the longest of the seasons. It's 10 to 14 days between ovulation and when your period comes. Luteal phase is usually split up into 2 different chunks. And in the first half, we still have hormones on the rise. Progesterone enters the scene. Estrogen is to ovulatory phase as progesterone is to luteal. So progesterone's really like the main character in this moment. Progesterone is there to promote pregnancy. When it arrives, it stimulates appetite. It's also going to make metabolism speed up, which from there makes blood sugar more likely to fluctuate if you're not getting all the calories in. You need to eat more during luteal phase. Estrogen hits its second peak to contribute to that comfy lining in the uterus. Then we enter the second half of the luteal phase, where it's like the egg was waiting to be fertilized. If the egg was fertilized, then you go into pregnancy and progesterone is just going to continue on doing its thing. If an egg was not fertilized, then hormones drop off and we move our way into the menstrual phase. when hormones drop, this is the time in our menstrual cycle we're most likely to experience hormone imbalance symptoms. It's kind of no glitz and glam anymore to fog what our actual picture of health is. When we lose the chatter of the hormones, we're able to see more clearly how our body is actually feeling. So you might have been stressed out all month, but you'll feel the effects of that in the luteal phase when hormones drop off. The big focus of luteal phase is keep blood sugar steady. We need it the most during this time. And also making enough progesterone is really important so that we experience the full duration of luteal phase. Luteal phase vibes. Luteal phase, just like how I was saying about how like without the chatter of hormones, things just become so much clearer. Kind of like the emotional and energetic things become a lot clearer too. Your bullshit tolerance is like, it's gone. It is so gone. Luteal phase is really only for the people that you actually fuck with. This is like more intimate hangs, at home hangs, making dinner together, cozier, very like fall energy. It's where we start to turn our focus more inwards. We're not completely like lock up the gate menstrual phase, but it is the time to prioritize ourselves more. And I think that's where we can really start to find the beauty in luteal phase. Where follicular phase is easy to love, luteal phase, at least I find, can be more difficult. Luteal phase is a phase that is in direct opposition to modern day values. It asks us to be a little bit more selfish and to slow down and be very strong with our boundaries. But there is a time and a place for that, and that is the really cool thing about the menstrual cycle. Each phase brings such a different gift to the table, and when we open ourselves up to what is my body actually asking for right now, we get to enjoy the lessons of that phase to the fullest. And we round it out with menstrual phase, your period, the dark night of the soul, the internal winter. When hormones drop, the uterus knows we don't need all that juicy endometrial tissue. Let's get rid of it so we can do this all again. That is what your bleed is. When I was growing up, I was like, not that I thought it was like blood coming from my arm, but I just was like, it's just blood. It's just coming out of me. I didn't really understand that it was this tissue, this specific lining. It's not just random body blood. It's a very specific, actually a very magical thing, just because of all the stem cells and the witchiness. So your body is shedding that endometrial tissue. This requires massive amounts of energy. Everything in your body in that moment is just focused on passing this tissue. This requires a massive amount of nutrients, which is all going to go out in your bleed. That's things like iron and zinc, which is why we have to rely so much more on food during menstrual phase. Like, it becomes, the stakes are like that much higher about what we're eating. Sex hormones are also completely quiet. We don't have that activity to give us like extra energy bursts, so it's completely like fats and protein and glucose that is giving us our energy. Menstrual phase is for rest and recovery. You do not push yourself during menstrual phase. You sit with your body and you listen because it has something to say. One of the coolest things about menstrual phase is that there's this bridge in between the two hemispheres of our brain. So, you know, we have like kind of an emotional side of our brain and then a more like logical side. And the bridge between these two sides shrinks during menstrual phase, so it becomes even easier for the two sides of your brain to communicate. We also don't have all the extra hormone noise, so it's like clarity central. They always say, like, if you have a big decision coming up, or if you were gonna like be like, do I really want to be with this guy? You take that through a menstrual phase, because that is when you are closest to like your most authentic beliefs. Big focus for the menstrual phase is really filling in nutrient gaps and reducing inflammation where we can. This is another point where without the protection of those hormones, we're more likely to feel the effects of imbalance, maybe painful cramps or bloat or migraines, and we can mitigate this by reducing inflammation. Menstrual phase for the girlies. My vibe is a lot of meditation, a lot of Joe Dispenza. Like, it's me and my journal. That's who I'm seeing during my menstrual phase. Just eating really loving foods, like big bowls of stew and like hot cups of tea. Loving and caring for yourself the way that you would like want a parent to. So you've met your menstrual cycle. You've got your follicular phase, your ovulatory phase, your luteal phase, and your menstrual phase. If you are more of a visual reading person, honestly, go over to katieflower.com, go to the blog, go to the Cycle Singing for Foodies thing. I've also got a very specific menstrual phase post, everything that's going on with that, and the choices that you can make to really support that phase. I want to keep doing that with the different phases because we can go so deep here. The closer we get to our menstrual cycle, the easier life becomes. Honestly, my goal is that we get out of constantly needing healing because we live so far away from these natural cycles within us, and we just know how to take care of ourselves. Done with the healing era, getting to fulfill like our highest potential. Like maybe you're like an astronaut, or you're gonna come up with this really cool technology that just sends us into the future, or you have beautiful art to create and you get to actually focus on that instead of feeling so sick and miserable in your body. The menstrual cycle is the key to all of this. And that's a wrap. I'll see you tomorrow. No homework, just let it sink in.